While retail thefts here in the city are skyrocketing. We've all seen the videos of brazen cases of apparent shoplifting over and over and over again. And sometimes it's violent.
So this is one of New York's many underground shopping centers. Crime here is so bad, it's tough for places like this to stay open, leaving many of them completely abandoned. And that's a problem because experts say things down here are about to get much worse.
A spike in shoplifting in New York City. The NYPD says it hasn't seen levels like this since 1995.
Professional thieves working as part of a criminal organization to try to obtain as much product directly from retailers as they can.
Small business owners and workers say they are fed up with crimes like you're seeing on your screen. They perceive this as a refusal by the city to crack down on shoplifting.
Bad guys no longer fear the police. They feel emboldened to do whatever they want.
Mayor Adams giving mixed messages, claiming that criminals here are emboldened while also insisting that the city itself is not out of control.
This is video from Monday's raid, where officers were seen confiscating merchandise ranging from clothes, jewelry, and power tools. Some of the goods are reportedly stolen.
We are arresting people over and over and over again. Where are the consequences?
So the city is now struggling to fix its dead, abandoned shopping centers just like this one. But what nobody's talking about is that all of this is the predictable result of New York City's soft on crime policies, which allow criminals to steal whatever, whenever, wherever, without any fear of repercussions. Because when people here get caught stealing, they get released. Nobody goes to jail. And this lawless environment has led to the rise of professional shoplifters who steal things from physical stores and then resell them on websites like Amazon, eBay, Facebook Marketplace. Yes, that grandmother you just bought a chainsaw from, who you didn't meet in person, whose 20-year-old son delivered it to you. That's a stolen product, and that's not someone's grandmother. But the real problem is that these underground malls and shopping centers that are struggling to stay open, they cost millions of dollars to build, and now they cost millions of dollars to maintain while they sit empty because nobody wants to start a business or run a business in a war zone. Because these places are connected to the New York City subway, which is just overrun with criminals, and there's nothing the police can do about it. And if the city can't protect its own businesses and tenants from crime and theft, what chance does your business or any business have in this city? Questions like these are why malls like this are pretty much empty. On top of that, these underground malls and facilities have a design flaw that in the progressive world we live in makes them even more of a target for criminals than any other store you could possibly open. So you wouldn't know by looking around, but we're right now in one of the most famous parts of New York City, Rockefeller Center. Above us, you have a major tourist attraction, but down here, you got another dead mall that can't fill its retail spaces.
U.S. malls have shaped the American shopping experience, and most of them have a similar layout. It includes a food court, popular clothing stores, and the most important part of any mall, anchor stores. Malls had a symbiotic relationship with their anchors. If the anchor closed, the mall's performance began to plummet.
So right away, we can see a massive problem with these underground types of malls. We're not attracting anchor stores like Macy's, Bloomingdale's, or even an Apple store. That would never come here. Instead, you've got empty storefronts, poor lighting, and a relatively dirty-looking environment compared to most shopping malls, which is why it should come as no surprise that 83% of these underground spaces across the city are empty. They do have a few stores like this Dunkin' Donuts. There's also a little magazine stand. There was a pizza place at one point, but that's shut down. And there's a pharmacy drugstore by the exit. But even though this doesn't look like a thriving, glowing retail environment, in the past, places like this never needed to attract an anchor store because they used to have something else going for them. But because the city has allowed the environment down here to deteriorate to such a level, the thing that used to work for places like this now works against them.
In just the last few days, there have been multiple violent attacks in the subway system.
That's right. Mayor Adams giving mixed messages, claiming that criminals here are emboldened while also insisting that the city itself is not out of control.
Fox 8's Linda Schmidt takes a close.
So the ace in the hole that places like this used to have, which meant they never needed an anchor store, was the subway system itself. But since the subway is now the most dangerous part of the city, it's definitely not helping. And just as a vanishing anchor store will deter customers, so will a crime-ridden transit system connected to the area you wish to rent out stores. In fact, the city subways are now such a disaster, the National Guard has been rolled out at various stations. The police are also conducting bag credit checks, but the problem is none of that's worked. Crime here is still out of control, and that's why the city's underground malls are in such a dilapidated, neglected, abandoned state. And it's also why the only businesses that they can get to come down here and open up are places like a Dunkin' Donuts or a convenience store that have something to do with commuter foot traffic. But think about it, everybody down here is trying to get out of here as fast as they can. And let's be honest, if you're not selling things like food or candy bars, criminals could easily steal something here and then escape into the train. And that's a problem because these stores are so small, they can really only have one, maybe two employees inside. There's no room for security. Plus, these are low-budget operations. They're not Fortune 500 businesses. And there's not even enough foot traffic down here to sustain fast food, which makes you wonder how successful would any business be trying to operate in an environment where everyone walking by is afraid. And to add insult to injury, up here on street level, you've got Fifth Avenue. This is where all the anchor stores are located. You've got Abercrombie & Fitch, Uniqlo, tons of brands all right here. You'd think that anchor store traffic to this, which is above that beat down mall, would have saved it, but no, that's how bad the crime is down there. You walk past here every single morning?
Yeah.
Is it bad down here?
Yeah, bro. I mean, like, as far as just like what you see, it's like stuff that might have been cool.
When I moved here over 10 years ago, I remember stuff like this being open, but now it's like...
Yeah, it's very like desolate. At least it's not like extremely dirty, but...
Yeah, for New York. And if you think about it, the environment down here is kind of the opposite what you'd want in an environment that's supposed to encourage people to spend money. I mean, look at this place. There's not exactly a ton down here to inspire consumer confidence, that's for sure. And when survival is the only thing on everyone's mind, getting people to spend money on expensive luxury products probably is never gonna happen. And that's why the best a place like this could ever hope for would be a restaurant like this, which gets some foot traffic but doesn't have any customers. Ditto the abandoned beauty shop over here. But the reason this is so concerning is because in other parts of the country, malls are thriving. Yes, it's true, malls were supposed to be dead, but they found ways to survive, just not here in an environment like this.
The death of the American mall has been a bit overblown. Retail mall sales grew 11% in 2022. Some of these thriving malls have pivoted toward an experiential model, placing department stores with grocery chains, casinos, gyms, ice skating rinks.
Yeah, there's definitely an experience happening down here, that's for sure. And it's not one the city who operates these places is particularly fond of, but because criminals can run rampant down here and do whatever they want without fear of jail time as long as they steal under $1,000 worth of stuff, all we are left with are the marks of a society that is in decline because criminals basically run the place. And what's fascinating about this is the city's not even doing the little things to clean this place up. Those are the doors that lead into that derelict area, and right outside of them, you've got Rockefeller Center, and lo and behold, look at that, there's a gift shop. There's another Dunkin' Donuts. You've got the skating rink, you've got the other things that people can do and experience when they're here, and those are the ingredients malls in other parts of the country have used to stave off their decline. And we have our first actual sit-down diner anyone would dare eat at. And this isn't a luxury facility either. Things here are pretty old, they're pretty dated, but it's well lit, it's clean, you see security guards walking around, people feel safe, there's something to do, this is working. But the problem with the subway is that there's nothing to do but get on the train and worry about getting to your next destination. And that's the big problem with this city's subway malls. The real estate itself limits what types of stores, what type of environment you can have, how high the ceilings can be, and the crime-ridden environment down there limits who's willing to even lease one of those spaces in the first place. And we even have a fully automated Amazon Go, which I don't think you could have in the subway, that's for sure. In fact, a business like this that exists totally on the honor system, I'm sorry to say, but a place like this wouldn't last more than 5 minutes in the New York City subway. On top of that, most of the city's abandoned malls are add-ons to pre-existing tunnels, so it's not like a mall in another part of the country where you could add offices, you could add luxury apartments, you could add some other reason for people to go there. No, they're stuck the way that they are. And what that basically means is that the moment the city decided that they were gonna let those areas deteriorate by protecting criminals, all of its retail operations were pretty much doomed to shut down permanently. So before starting this video, I didn't realize how bad New York City's mall apocalypse actually was. And what's funny about this is the city keeps talking about how the subway system is losing money. Well, there's a whole bunch of ways that they could be earning money, but their own policies that protect criminals, prevent that from happening.
Mayor Adams says the subway system is averaging about 6 felonies every day. He wants those statistics to improve, which is why he...
So that's the environment down here. People just want to get away from this place. And aside from crime, the subway itself has other problems. In fact, many of the city's most popular lines are only on time around 70%. And that means 30% of the people walking by your store are late for something else. Which means not only is the city failing to protect places like this by letting the service people get deteriorate as well, people have no time to go and buy anything in an environment like this. And think about what a letdown this is for the local business community. For years, places were existing down here and they watched the environment around them deteriorate until they had to shut down. In fact, things are so bad down here, only about 17% of all of the city's mall shops are actually open, being leased by a tenant. On top of that, as this cycle continues, crime increasing, more businesses shutting down, the chances of getting a new business, that's gonna go down, and the number of people using the train and actually paying for it, that's also gonna continue to go down. The whole thing is a sinking ship.
Mall owners are shifting and optimizing these empty spaces left by empty anchor stores.
But it's really for the customer. Their journey has been amplified. You can see it. You can, smell maybe a great restaurant or a cleanly and clean environment. Subconsciously, when you have a positive experience, those senses are being impacted. And you're like, I like that place. I want to go there.
Yeah, psychologically, not a whole lot of memorable, positive experiences happening to anybody down here. In fact, let's take a step back from the crime problem for a second here. Really, the level of deterioration and dilapidation down here is downright appalling. And the only businesses that you're going to find in places like this are the ones that are leaving and can't afford to stay anymore. Think about it. Once whatever was inside this store shuts down and leaves, how is something similar going to reopen here and establish a brand new customer base? Nobody down here wants to be a customer of anything. This is basically the opposite of what you want in a shopping mall. And what's fascinating is even though crime and vandalism have tanked rents here, rents for your businesses that are street level have actually increased recently in New York City. So people are paying more to be above ground, but you can't pay some of them to open up a shop down here, that's for sure. Yes, if you go into a department store, you'll see bike locks chaining all of the clothing to the racks. You'll see plastic boxes locking up your toothpaste, locking up your detergent. But even with the increased costs of operating in a high crime environment, businesses are still willing to do it because the foot traffic and the fact that this is New York City still incentivizes people to come here and spend money. And that's in spite of fierce competition from online retailers like Amazon. But this is the point in the story where things get really frightening for the future of New York City's malls. So if you thought the other malls were bad, this one right here is probably the worst because we're at the Port Authority bus terminal and look at this. All of these stores are completely shut down. And there's even more foot traffic here because we've got the buses and we've got multiple subway lines and this connects to Times Square. If any of these should be able to survive or at least get more than a shoe shop and a Wells Fargo ATM, it would be this place, but it's not.
Malls have proven to be resilient, but all malls aren't made the same. Malls unable to shift to the new model R&D closing. From 2017 to 2022, the number of malls in the U.S. declined almost 17% yearly.
So it looks like we're seeing the real problem with these malls play out right here because crime should be better. You've got police in the station, but you can't use this real estate for anything else. You can't install laser tag or an ice skating rink in one of these tiny kiosks. And certainly this is not the kind of environment where anybody would want to have a nice meal, that's for sure. And to many, it looks like the city is just giving up on doing anything with these. In fact, the city's underground mall operations only earned half their potential revenue last year. And even with drastically reduced rents, they can't get anybody to try and open here. But what nobody's talking about is that to even open a store down here, it's 4 times harder than it is to open a store of the same size up on the street. Because even though it might not look like it, the MTA has standards for what businesses have to abide by. And the amount of rules and requirements and restrictions a little business would have to go through to open up down here just isn't worth it for a lot of companies. Especially when there don't really seem to be any standards of behavior for the people who hop the subway train, get in here, don't pay, commit crimes, right? There's standards if you want to abide by the law, but if you want to break the law, go ahead. And that's why little malls and shops like this might stay abandoned for quite some time, causing the city to lose progressively larger and larger amounts of money just because they won't run their business properly. But this brings up a huge question. What on earth is it going to take to turn this ship around? Well, I think the officers writing fare evasion tickets would know something about that, but unfortunately it's going to take a lot more than fare evasion tickets. So if it's not immediately obvious, the crime-ridden environment down here is gonna have to disappear if you want good things to reappear. And it's great that we've got the police and the National Guard, but the problem is their hands are tied. Every criminal they arrest gets released right back out onto the streets. And what's fascinating is even the awful bus terminal has vacant spaces, but the Port Authority is doing a much better job with its realty places. They're signing leases, and the actual mall portion of the bus terminal isn't terrible compared to what we just looked at. And a lot of these stores look pretty nice inside. Are they perfect? Of course not. But I didn't see any clothing stores that weren't shut down in the subway. And down in the subway, you have essentially the most lawless environment in New York City. And even though you have guards by the entry points, it's not exactly well policed. And even if it was, when criminals get caught stealing or robbing a store, if they steal under $1,000 worth of stuff, it's classified as a misdemeanor. And no one in this town is going to jail over shoplifting. And that's because back in 2019, crimes were classified based on how violent they were, as whether or not the offenses would be bail eligible. Misdemeanor, petty larceny, not bail eligible. And that's why you've got such an issue with repeat offenders who just rob stores, get released, and then rob stores again and get released again. That right there is a massive deterrent to any business being successful. And the no consequences environment in New York already is magnified by the totally unmonitored environment below ground. And that means unless the city changes its laws to allow police to make arrests that actually secure the subway system, stores that are down there are going to remain abandoned. We're going to have a whole abandoned set of infrastructure pieces throughout New York City that just sit like that and are never used for anything. It's sad because when I first moved here, I remember many of those places being open and thriving, but that's no longer the case. What do you think the city should do to punish criminals? What do you think they should do about retail crime? Let me know. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.